Resource for Writers podcast, where each week you get mini craft talks from creative writing teachers and working writers. Head over to resourceforwriters.com, where you can join writing groups, classes, book clubs, and many other events. We hope you like this episode.
Welcome to Resource for Writers podcast. I'm Desi Link.
And I'm Roxanne McDonald.
Yes, and today we are going to talk about yearning. I'm excited to hear about this one.
Yeah, me too. Because I've been talking about it all week. Yearning. So how we record this podcast is that I teach 2 workshops, and then I come directly to this. And so what I keep doing is just like, what's up with writers this week? And the thing that has been up a lot is yearning. And it's come up not just in the beginning of a work and us knowing like, what does this character want? It comes up in so many areas because it's not just the beginning of a story. I want to make that clear, but I'm going to talk about the beginning of the story and then talk about how yearning is the thing that holds everything in a story together. Even when I know I talked about through line, did we talk about through line yet?
We have. And I was going to ask you that, like, what's the connection between the transformation and yearning? Mm-hmm. Like, are they the same?
Mm-hmm. No, but they're not the same, but you can't have transformation without yearning.
Right.
Nobody's going to change unless they want something.
Yes.
Otherwise, I mean, So when you're looking at writing and you're wanting people to care, right? That's what we want. Otherwise, it's just a big whatever. Mm-hmm. You can pick up a whole bunch of words and it's just a big whatever. And so what most writers struggle with or forget to do is to stay on track with yearning. So I'm going to describe yearning first. And Robert Olen Butler, in his book From Where You Dream, it's a collection of his talks to his master's program at Florida State University. And he describes yearning as the epiphany in a piece of writing, where the details accumulate around a moment where the character's deepest yearning is revealed. And he says, I was recently listening to an interview with him, and he's gotten to where he's like, that needs to be within the first 500 words.
Right.
And so understanding that humans, we're always talking, even if we're like writing about rabbits, but they're placeholders for humans. That's what we're always talking about, humans, right? The human experience. Humans are 2 things. We make meaning and we want things. That's like, if we were like, that's what our animal is about. Our human animal is that we are a meaning making animal and we're a yearning animal. So meaning making is all that stuff that goes into theme. Everything means more than it does, right? So I think if we talked about meaning making is that like, you can wear a piece of jewelry, and if you're wearing a cross and I'm wearing a pentagram, we have meaning about those things, right?
It's very
but it's the same. If they're both silver, they're both just metal. So humans make meaning. Humans go, a teapot screaming on the stove is not just a teapot when we're reading literary fiction, right? The teapot is the screaming of our underlying desire to be wanted and needed, right? Yes. So writers what we're doing constantly is we're playing with these things about humans that we're meaning making and we're yearning. And the other thing I want to stress, and I say this everywhere I teach. So whether I'm teaching writing or I'm doing a counseling group or I'm teaching mindfulness, any of it, the thing that is true across the board is that people often think that our most vulnerable thing we can share is our deepest wound. And I don't think that's the case. The most vulnerable thing we can share is our dreams, our yearning, that's the most vulnerable. When you it's almost impossible to look away from somebody when they have said, my heart's desire is, right? When you know somebody's heart's desire, you generally care, even just a little, right? When it's a true heart's desire. And so in writing, if you can, as the writer, understand what the deepest yearning of every character is, but most specifically your protagonist. And I know I've said in other episodes, so identifying the protagonist as the character with the most opportunity for change.
Yes.
So that change is connected to that yearning. So what does your character want?
That's what we're going to hold on for, right? That's why we're going to keep reading, to figure out if they ever get that.
Yes. Yes. And if you think about how powerful it is when somebody's truly apathetic, right? Like if you watch the Die Hard movies, I don't know, this is way before your time. Like
I don't watch those. I'm not a huge action fan.
Yeah, well, I'm not a huge Mel Gibson fan, so I wouldn't watch those again. But Die Hard movie, no, it's not Die Hard. Wait a minute, that's
Braveheart.
No. See, I'm horrible at this. I'm not an action fan. Lethal Weapon.
Oh.
Mel Gibson. Okay. I was thinking of Bruce Willis, but it's another one of those squint and whisper. That's their acting style. That's like Bruce Willis, all like,
yeah,
get this plane. and then Mel Gibson. Okay. Anyway, Lethal Weapon. And the Lethal Weapon thing is that his superpower is he's suicidal. He doesn't care. He wants to die. He wanted to die, and then he got intercepted to have his last thing as a detective, right? But he doesn't care. He's like, I don't care if I die. So his superpower is that he's apathetic. He just does not care, right? Mm-hmm. So working with teenagers, when I used to work with teenagers, one of the most powerful tools for a defiant youth is when they do not care what you do to them. They don't care what you take away from them. They don't care where they live. They don't care. Like when they don't care, it is so powerful. They are in a power position, right? So I say that because it exemplifies how powerful caring is. How powerful wanting something is.
And this is why people probably don't share it, right?
Oh my gosh.
Because they're afraid of somebody maybe taking that and making fun of it, or, saying that's dumb.
Why it's vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think people, I've done a lot of public speaking, and people are like, oh my gosh, you're so good at it. But then on the other side, you actually, before we started recording, you said you were reflecting on how I teach and how I show up in workshops, and you were like, you make mistakes, you just keep going, you just like, oh, blah blah blah, mess that one up, right? And it's because I'm not a good public speaker or facilitator because I over prepare, and I am, I'm prepared, but not like you're like organized and you do PowerPoints. I've never done a PowerPoint, right? I'm a powerful public speaker and facilitator because I show up and I admit what I truly want, and people can't look away. So when I would go speak at these conferences where there'd be thousands of people, and I would stand up and just talk for an hour. And the reason why I was good at it is because I am not afraid to stand up and say, this is my deepest desire. And then people couldn't look away. And of course I'm funny, I've got stories, all these other things. But when I look at why I'm good at what I do, why I'm good on the internet, because I say, this is my deepest desire all the time. Like when I have things go viral on the internet, it's almost always about me sharing what my yearning is. I want to honor Carmen, right? I want to change the system that protects predators. It's not me just going, we need to stop this. It's me. The reason why it's evocative is because I share what my deepest yearning is. So when we take that and we put it on the page, and when we understand it as writers, and I know I always do caveats, but all of this should be done after you have barfed onto the page. So don't, of course you can be thinking, I'm searching for the yearning, but don't keep it from writing, right? Yeah. Barf, do your drafts, get it out, right?
Because a lot of the time when you reread that's where you'll find that yearning.
Yes, it reveals itself, right?
Yes.
And so if you're writing a memoir, first person, it's strange to think about that we don't actually understand our deepest yearning until we write, but it's so often true. With characters, they come, and usually it's just a flicker of a character, and then we give them all of their characteristics through exploring them on the page, and then through that their yearning is revealed. So the analytical process, like in my Basics and Beyond course that is now up, it's these stages of the writing process, right? So that analyzing, intellectualizing happens after you've put words on the page. But it's so important, because when you can step back and you can go, okay, what does every character in this scene want? What do they most want? And what do they want right in that moment? And a lot of times what after I will be working with writers is that they will get, this character wants freedom. That's their biggest thing. And they are not free in this marriage, and they are, they're conflicted because of this. But then they go through all the stuff that happens in the work, and they lose track of that yearning, right? And then it falters. So then if you're in a group that is just, it's not facilitated well, a writer's group, oftentimes people will just get the thing of like, well, it lacks tension, or I don't know, it just got dragged. Dragged isn't a thing. It's something is missing. And when you can understand what that thing is, and if you start at yearning and then look for the other things there, right? So yearning is usually missing.
Yes.
So when you're working on a scene or the beginning of a piece, ask yourself, what do they want, and how do their wants conflict within themselves or externally? Right? If two characters are talking, right, and they're in dialogue, they each have yearnings, and they each are going to be working towards those yearnings or self-sabotaging, which is a powerful thing. But simply understanding what everyone wants will make you far more impactful as a writer, no matter what you're writing, is understanding yearning.
And you're saying that this has to go for every character, or is it like, could it be side characters too? Does every character need this?
I mean, you should know what every character wants. Otherwise, why the hell are they on the page?
Yeah.
Why did they walk on the stage?
Yeah.
if they don't want something, right? No character.
Why are they here?
I know in my Basics and Beyond course, I kept saying, I'm ruining your reading for a while. I'm sorry. I'm ruining your movie watching, because when you start to identify these ingredients, you can't unsee them.
Yes.
So if I say it's often easier to develop the muscle of identifying these things in other people's work. And sometimes it's even reading books, because writers, we love them so much, to just watch a TV show, watch a movie. Watch and go, exactly when do they reveal what this character wants? And I think I've talked about this, where my friends, when we sit down and watch a movie, and I revealed to them how nerdy I am about this, and then within 5 minutes I could be like, look, they built the world, they revealed the yearning, and then now they're putting something in between that character and their yearning. And if once you start doing that, you cannot unsee it. But the beauty of it is that it makes you powerful when you're writing.
Because you're watching and reading like a writer now. You're building that muscle, like you said, although it does take the magic away a little bit.
Well, it does a little bit, but then it's interesting to see how it's revealed, because there's so many ways to reveal it, but simply understanding it will make it so all those ideas that you have can actually find like momentum. And that's the thing. So much writing lacks momentum. Yeah. It's like what I said before about the literary agents saying they get a whole bunch of just like proposals and query letters that are just trash. And they're like, this person has done no research. But then they get this like 10% that are people who are good writers and have good ideas. But then the agent starts to read the work and they call it a beautiful whatever, because it has no momentum.
Yeah.
And people will use these terms like it has to have a hook. Well, what is the hook? The hook
that yearning
is yearning. The hook is yearning.
Yes.
The hook, and what we tend to do with the hook is we're like, I'm going to come up with a scenario that people want the answers for. But if you put stick figures in a scenario, we don't really care. So you've got to have people in that scenario that that want something, and and then you put the scenario as the obstacle that is going to stand in the way of what they truly want. Mm-hmm. And the more you understand that, the more nuanced your work can be, because you don't have to have big explosions to have it be tense, to have it be meaningful, back to meaning.
Yeah. I mean, I think you were talking about that before too. We were like, often like some of the like most simple yearnings that a person wants, and you put that on the page, is going to be more impactful, even if it's just two characters at a coffee shop, you know, having a conversation. You don't need all the bells and whistles, and it could still be very impactful with just that. Mm-hmm. If you know how to translate that yearning.
Yes.
Would you say that there needs to be yearning in like every scene? Like this is a good practice for writers to kind of go through their work, see where it lags, and then input that yearning there?
Yeah, or just be conscious of it, about that. It's, you know, the momentum underneath the scene. So of course there's lots of pieces where you're just going to have to set up the world, but if you're not doing it consciously, it's going to be like, you know, like I'll speak for myself. So I have my memoir, I have a lot of intense stuff happen, right? And I spent years writing and writing and writing all this intense stuff, but it was just, it's like somebody just sitting in front of you and going, a whole bunch of stuff happened. This stuff, and, you know, happened in interesting places, but it doesn't have momentum, right?
Feel it.
Yeah. So now, as I'm crafting hopefully this last draft before I send it off, is that even though I'm going to spend pages setting up the Alaskan wilderness, or pages setting up the lies that I was told, my yearning in this book is to not be violent. Mm-hmm. And I am set up towards violence. So I am writing the descriptions of the Alaskan wilderness with the intent of going, this is playing into the yearning that I have this character, which is me as a child, coming up against, right? So I can write all day about the Alaskan wilderness, but it's going to flop until I understand that I'm doing it for a purpose. I'm going to do it to go, subsistence hunting involves violence, but it's not the type of violence that I'm trying to get away from, but it's confusing as a child, right? Mm-hmm. So when I am writing about guns are all through my memoir. And I just was like, well, they're a theme, right? No, because guns can be used towards there's this brutality in the wilderness, but it's not the kind of violence that eats away a person's soul. And my yearning was like, I knew that enacting that violence was going to eat my soul, so that journey and all the places I'm describing. So when I come back to Santa Cruz, and it's not that wilderness, but there's all this despicable violence around me, but then the world was saying, people who kill animals and skin them and look in their eyes and then eat their flesh are violent. But then I'm looking at people shooting each other in the street, mm-hmm. and I'm confused. It's with that yearning of like, I want to make sense of the world, because I don't want my soul eaten by becoming a violent person. Mm-hmm. And it's the same information, right? Mm-hmm. Alaskan wilderness hunting, Santa Cruz streets, gang shooting. Mm-hmm. But with the momentum of this core person, me as the character, battling against survival and violence.
I like that. I like how the yearning can be even in the description.
It's definitely in the description.
Yes.
It's the reason why the screaming tea kettle will mean something when you're describing things. It's back to, I can't remember what I've said on the podcast and what is in the Basics and Beyond course that's up on the website now for sale, and it's not very expensive.
Not at all.
But detail. And then when you, like I say, barf up a whole bunch of detail, but then you go back with consciousness about yearning and transformation, those details will push into meaning. And when you have yearning and meaning, we have that thing where people are like holding that book up and just going, you have to read this thing. Yeah, I can't describe it. It's this stuff that happens, but it's the best thing I ever read. And it's yearning and meaning.
Wow, everything comes alive.
Yeah.
Love that.
We're trying to keep these short, and then I get wild. And if it's watching it on YouTube, you can see I wave my arms around and I'm sweating.
It's your passion. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, good. So if you leave here with anything, it's question the yearning of every character in your entire work. But if you're working, especially in scenes, understand what they want in that moment. What they want in that moment will help you make decisions about what you write, what they do. So
it helps with the editing process too. Oh, for sure. Because when you go through and you're like, it's lagging here, should I keep this scene or not? Well, can you add in some yearning, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Should I keep this character or not? Well, you know, what's their backstory? How are they kind of, you know, helping the rest of the story?
Yes. And then in the basics and beyond, and in the, you know, in the feedback groups, what I try to do is help people to insert that yearning and not have it just be, it doesn't have to be overt. It doesn't have to be, it can be in so many different ways. It can be through how the person sees the world. So doing like, it's not always just going, he wants this, but I also really do, like with my work, I'll go through and track out, what do I want here? What does she want here? What do they want there? What's going on? Da, 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 right? And what I just want to say before we end is that it seems so analytical, but that it is actually beautiful when you have written something and then you go back in and you question it and you chew on it and then you come back and then all of a sudden something blooms up that you're like, I didn't even realize. Yes. And then this thing is revealed to you. And then your ideas and your story and your history and all of it become even more beautiful to you as a human being living this life and not just a writer. And that's that thing about why I think writing is so powerful and art is so powerful as being an artist, is that when it surprises you and when it comes forth to you, and then you make your life sweeter. And I just want to say, aside from the writing, is that I am such a better person and a kinder person and a more powerful person when I go through my life looking at everybody and going, what do you really want? What is your heart's desire? What is it? And watching for it. Even when I'm like even with trolls on the internet, sometimes I think, why, what do you truly want? And it actually doesn't mean I'm nice to them, but it does make me more powerful. And it does, and I like myself better.
Yeah, I always think like when we're at like parties and stuff, like we shouldn't ask people like, what do you do? Because not everybody does what they love. Like, but ask like, what do you want? What like makes you happy? You know, we would like get to know people on such a better level. Yeah. It would just open that up.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think people shut down when you're like, what's your heart's desire? But you're just energetically doing that too.
Yeah.
Sweet way to live.
And so we should definitely know that about our characters.
Absolutely.
If not each other, at least our characters.
Yes. Yes. Reveal the yearning.
Yes.
To yourself first.
Yeah. And do you have any like tips on like ways that we can highlight that yearning more? Because I feel like for some writers, it's like obvious to them, but it might not be obvious to the readers.
Join a weekly feedback group, consistently get good feedback with at least one trained professional there who is generous and looking for it for you. And then also if you have a good friend, a writer buddy, and then you talk to them about what you believe the yearning is, and then let them look for it. Right? Or even ask. That one tip too is if you're exchanging work, to even just ask the person without telling them, can you reflect back to me what you think these characters want? And if they can't answer the question, go back in and do it more. Yeah. And there's not one way. You know, there is a way, like I said, like I do, where I I print out my work and then I write in the margins, what do I want here? And then I look, okay, now the yearning, the desire has changed. It's still in line with the core desire, but how am I trying to get my needs met here? And when I say needs met, it's not, because people will think there's a story when somebody is physically hungry and they're just trying to get food. Yeah, right? But that it's different than going, I don't want my soul eaten by violence,
Yeah.
you know? And then I'm going to try to get food. Do you see? So like going deeper, asking a deeper question but once you start looking, it's revealed through details. It's not always, of course, just say it in your work. He wants this. And then you could take it out later, but even just do that.
So it could be like the way that they have their outlook on the world, the way they describe things, and the choices that they make.
Yes. I mean, I think I'll do a whole like craft talk course on this. So get on the newsletter. I do a Basics and Beyond monthly thing that you can attend, or you can get the recording, but I'll show examples of this in that course. So it's either, depending on when this episode comes out, it'll either be up on the website or it'll be, scheduled, but I will do an entire class on yearning, but to give examples, because it's impossible to give it here.
Right.
But I think if we leave people with anything, is to just like put on your glasses for yearning and start looking for them.
Be aware of it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And I have a book club.
Yes.
For writers, but you can come even if you're not a writer. And I mean, we meet together, we have writing prompts, we write together, we share our work, and it's a beautiful community over there. And you can sign up on the Resource for Writers website. It's called Beyond Borders Book Club.
Yes, it's terrific. And then you can sign up for the newsletter. You'll always get updates about the book club, about anything that we're offering on Resource for Writers. You can also, if you're interested in a feedback group, I know I always say this, but get on the waiting list. We have a waiting list, and then somebody had a medical issue and could not come last minute, and we went through the entire waiting list, and then people, somebody got it who had just gotten on the waiting list. Like she had and it was a lot, so if you're at all interested, please get on the waiting list. And I want to say it again, if I have enough people, I will start another group. So
yes.
And then that's it. I think we're done for the week.
Yes. All right. You guys take care.
Yeah. Keep writing.
Yes.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh yes. Okay.